Okay, and we should be on the air, virtually connecting with Domain 17. If you folks on site would like to introduce yourselves, and then we'll do a quick round of introductions with the virtual folks.
Hi, I'm John Stewart. We're all from OU, so to save some time, I'm in Center for Teaching Excellence and work on our domains project.
My name is Keegan Longwheeler, and I am also at the Center for Teaching Excellence, working in domains and other technology and faculty initiatives.
My name is Cody Taylor. I'm from OU Libraries. I work on open educational resources, and I manage a makerspace that's within our library.
And I'm Laura Gibbs. I teach online gen ed humanities courses.
All right. So the virtual folks, just a brief round of introductions. Maybe Chrissy, then Ken, then Ian, Helen, and then we have Dave.
Hi, excuse me. Chrissy Lukens. I'm the Director of Academic Technology at St. Norbert College. And can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Okay, great. Anxious to hear from all of you.
I'm Ken Bauer, coming in from Guadalajara, Mexico, a computer science professor at the Tecnológico de Monterrey.
Ian?
I'm Ian O'Byrne. I'm from the College of Charleston and excited to hang out once again with some good people.
And I'm Helen DeWard. I teach at the Faculty of Education in Central Ontario.
I'm Dave Goodrich. I am a learning experience designer at Michigan State University. And I think we have George who joined us here too.
Yeah. Oh. Hi, George Station at Cal State Monterey Bay. I teach a first-year seminar, Technology and Society theme that meets a social science general education requirement, and I used to teach lower division technology skills courses, things like that.
Glad that you made it. We were worried about you.
I was kind of cutting it close. I was on break. I was in an earlier session, so I was kind of on break and got back in time.
Cool.
George is technically on vacation, right? So thank you, George, for taking.
Oh, hey, folks. Hey, Oklahoma people.
Yeah.
So what's going on site? Are you wrapping up already? And we can see the penguin, and we have heard there's some foosball going on as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're down to the last session. Keegan's going to be one of the last presenters here in about a half an hour. Do you want to start with just your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, it's been amazing in terms of, a mix of different kinds of presentations. If you look at the program or read through the Twitter stream, we've had stuff on pedagogy, practical administrative stuff, tech stuff, organizing stuff. Just the range of stuff has been fantastic.
Yeah, part of from the keynote, we've been sort of challenged to think about what comes next for domains. And so as we've gotten these set up at so many schools, how do we take the next steps? How do we not just give students domains, but help them better understand web security, help them understand how to take control of their own data and how to move as they cease to be students into the next realm, how to help them be more discoverable, more searchable, and to better use the internet and to understand it. And so it's a lot of sort of what comes next. And a lot of questions, maybe not as many answers yet.
And I think a student network is coming. One of the cool things is there are some students here, and there's some great student-led initiatives at the different campuses. So I think at different sessions, I've heard people say, we need to turn this into a more formal network. So that's going to be great.
Yeah, so I'm doing a session really over like how domains and the LMS can kind of work together in lots of ways, and really the perspective that I'm going to present on it is also as like a way to introduce and kind of scaffold what it would be like, even so to the extreme, without an LMS as well. So like trying to engage folks in thinking critically about how they're structuring their technology in their courses and kind of like what that means. So we're going to break down and have we're gonna have a fun little workshop getting folks to explore some cool tools. And I've been like collecting more and more from each of the sessions as I've attended. So it's going to be fun to kind of do some brainstorming and some workshopping with everyone on site. So
Coming last is really cool that way, right? You
yeah,
get
yeah,
to
because now I have all
build on
these
all this stuff.
things. So now my presentation is only like half of the content, and everybody else is just going to structure the rest. So it'll be good.
Okay. Cool. Chrissy had a question. Don't know. Would you want to speak up and pose it yourself? I can read it as well if you want.
Sure. I was just intrigued with, you said there are some student initiatives, or you've heard of some things throughout the conference. Can you elaborate on that a bit more with some specifics?
One of the best sessions that I attended was about I think they're digital technology assistants at Muhlenberg. And one of the student technology assistants was here presenting, shared his personal experience, and gave a really in-depth account of how the student assistants work together there at Muhlenberg. And I think the slide presentations and such are going to be online. That is definitely one to check out, because they had some great slides about how they brought the students in, recruited them, helped them to form a community, and how they're now moving forward where they have this momentum from the students themselves. It was a great presentation.
And not part of the presentation here, but Georgetown was presenting at the fair that started everything off. And their domains project is also very student-centric. And you can get some more information about their stuff online, I think.
Right.
Can I tell my student story?
Yeah.
I had a great student story happen. I was in a session this morning with Cody, and we're sitting there learning how to use Grav, and I'm all focused and trying to pay attention. But you know, Twitter, it's there. So I sort of glanced over at my Twitter, and I had a DM on the Twitter. Was one of my former students is here at the conference. So I knew him as an undergraduate who was just blogging out in the wild before there was domains. Well, now he's a graduate student in social work, a domainer, all these great plans to bring domains to the world of social work. And I got to meet him in person here for the first time. So that was really cool.
We brought in some people, so we have OU Create as our domains project, and we have an annual Creaties where we try to highlight some of the best work by students and also by faculty. And so we invited students who had been at this Creaties event to come to the conference and just sort of see what was going on and talk with everyone. And so he was one of the nominees that we asked to come.
Can I just leave it just a very basic question that you might not even like be able to answer? I mean, there's at lots of conferences, and I last heard this at OER, that people and conference organizers should try and integrate students more. What do you think works at domains, what elsewhere doesn't? Or what nudge did they find? Or is it just that students are on site at Oklahoma anyways, and they just were invited to join?
It makes me think about one of the points that was actually from the student session that Jess made. And that point is that this is a situation, ed tech-wise, where both our students and faculty are at the same level in terms of like their learning. So like they're already, not that all of their needs are in sync necessarily, but many of their needs related to domain are. So there's opportunities there in terms of engaging at a level plane in scholarship, in digital presence, and all of those different things. So I think that's actually a powerful component of it, and not as maybe, yeah, it's just inherent in what it is, I guess.
And in domains too, right? Like, you know, student agency is something that we talk about. Well, domains is a great example of how student agency can happen in a way that, say, is not always going to be happening in classes or in content production. So, you know, having the students here is sort of natural and also really essential, I would say, in a way maybe that's not as true for other conferences. It's been great.
Although I do think, like, here we're trying to ask the students, you know, what can we do to make this better for you? But we should be doing that in most conferences. I'm not sure there's any conference where students wouldn't belong. And maybe there are, I'm just not thinking very broadly. But I think we should try to integrate students into more, if not all, conferences.
But they'll have more fun here.
Yeah, that's probably.
Yeah.
So, and we brought a couple students, but actually I think there are more students here from Muhlenberg and from a couple of other schools.
Oh, from MSU, there's a great grad student presentation from Michigan State.
So I got a question for you guys. When we go to conferences face to face and you're interacting and you're bumping in and out of sessions and you see larger themes that occur. you know, and those themes go across sessions. Those themes go when you're playing foosball or half-heartedly playing ping pong, or you're sitting at the bar or whatever. So you see these larger themes that occur across. For those of us that are vicariously connecting with this conference, what are we missing? Like, what are the real things that are sticking in your gut that once you leave this, you're going to be thinking about for a couple days? Like, what's really resonating with you while you're there?
Well, I love seeing how domains works really differently in other places. I mean, that was something that was new to me, and so we got to see it just as a result of all the people who were here talking about it. And I hope there's going to be some kind of way for Reclaim to share that message out, to show that variety, so that you could go to Reclaim and just get a sense of the stories that we heard here, because there are a lot of different kinds of stories.
And so the technology has really stuck out to me, seeing what other tools people are using. Even try as I might to stay on top of, you know, tools that exist, it's really nice to interact with people here and see what they're using. Because already just today have been several tools that I was completely unaware of that I hope to maybe try out once I leave.
I think one of the things for me that's kind of sticking out, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of faculty development and professional development and those things, is how do we scaffold the jump to being more of an advanced user with something like Domains or WordPress, whatever, insert blank here for Domains tool. But like one of the thoughts while I was in conversation earlier today was like having maybe like a faculty learning community or something where it's like a challenge based, like, hey, we're going to use your domain and you're going to host a podcast this week, or you're going to do this or that, and like try and challenge them. Because one of the things that I think was a big takeaway from yesterday is really for domains in particular as a technology, it's really the breaking down and building up and that practice that's where most of the learning is occurring, rather than with other tools necessarily. So trying to build off of that and help facilitate that interaction in both a safe environment, but also like a valuable, contextualized kind of place to get people thinking about it critically and doing stuff like that. And so kind of thinking through what professional development like that would look like, and what are the next steps in terms of supporting our domains project is something that I'm thinking about.
I'll be your guinea pig for that. That sounds great.
I think part of that is also a lot of the projects here are starting to mature a little bit. They've moved past the first, we're introducing this onto campus and we're trying to get some users. And now it's okay, well, once we've got several hundred or even several thousand users, how do we take the next step beyond just WordPress and play with new tools, try out new things and move them into, from beginner bloggers into sort of more advanced users. How can we challenge them to do flat files, and how can we, introduce just new stuff. Part of what I liked today was on analytics and thinking about, from the administrative side, how do we manage people who are leaving the university, or how do we manage accounts as people are leaving the university? How do we see sort of activity across the board and start to think about, our systems as they mature. But same thing with the users, as they mature, how do we challenge them to keep growing?
John, did you go to the Lansing Community College presentation?
No.
They're talking about alumni stuff and how to keep accounts going. So
okay, yeah. So another one that I didn't even know about.
It was
ties in.
Yeah.
I know, it's an awkward silence right now.
Listening to Jim in the background.
I know. I'm waiting for a penguin to come flying by again.
Oh yes, there are penguins. So.
Where's Daniel?
So it seems like there's also like a lot of talk about the human, about personal reactions and personal connections and scaling up and getting like normal humans to be able to do this. Was that by design, or is that like an initial theme? Where did that, that's at least what I've gained from the outside watching, on the internet.
I think part of it is about, how do you do this? And part of it is, we don't have nobody has 10 IT people sitting around who are going to take on a project. So Tom Woodward was talking about that he's one person who enjoys sleeping in sunlight, but manages 23,000 websites. And so how do you scale, and how do you be, human in doing that? So again, from the administrative side, there's that, but then, everybody I think has done a good job of staying student centric in terms of how do we build this for the actual humans that we're trying to help.
Well, and I see a lot of it in it's just the passions of the people here. A lot of times, like they're thinking in terms of people rather than in terms of numbers on spreadsheets and those kinds of things. So I think that's a component of it too.
Yeah, the tech stuff has all been very much about how would you share this with students, with faculty. That's why I really enjoyed the Grav presentation I went to. There's actually, props here, Candy from the Grav presentation. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, well, my students could do this too. I mean, the way it was introduced to us was very straightforward, something that you could turn around and share with your students.
It's been very much, at least on the tech side, how can we make tech more accessible, right? Using these tools, how can we make it such that people of maybe a beginner status might be able to use these tools? It's been really nice.
So I've got a question for the on-site, and it's about scale. You mentioned scale a minute ago. Is that emerging as any kind of an issue? You know, because we've all got our kind of smallish networks and connections and so on, and we're getting in touch with, you know, people who will, you know, maybe resonate with all of this. Is scaling up emerging as an issue, or are we even thinking about it or talking about it?
Yeah, BYU just gave a presentation about how they manage their site, which has 6,000 users, and is probably the largest sort of full domains, top-level domains project going on right now. And so they were very much thinking about scale and how do you see activity across that kind of scale? How do you see when people stop using their accounts, and what do you do about it? How do you notify those people and help them to transition off of their BYU accounts and into, you know, WordPress.com or wherever else they need to go? And so they were talking about just some of the procedures that they're starting to put in place to maintain that scale. And Tom Woodward was talking about his is a multi-site WordPress instance at VCU. And he's got, like I said, about 22,000 users. And so he was very much talking about just his workflow and how do you do that. And so a lot of it was talking about big scale, but then I think, yeah, it's very much, I think a lot of the presentations, even if they're not framed that way, are about scale. How do you take care of 300 students? How do you take care of one student? And you could argue that, you know, that Jesse and Sean's talks about the human at the core of all of it is still about scale. It's about understanding the micro as well as the macro and dealing with everything.
And then another way to look at scale is just the scale of the conference here, because I think we're about 80 people.
Yeah.
What an ideal conference size, because you really do feel like you can see, if not everybody, most people. It's not too small, but it's not too big. And, you know, as Reclaim grows, that's going to be the scale of the community is something that I'll want to think about too. What's that like for you all as you interact with the Reclaim community?
Yeah, and Reclaim's really good about that. Just at the point of the conference, one of the thoughts on it was that they reserved tables at several different restaurants for us last night, 10 people at each of the different restaurants. And they were thinking about what is the scale of a good conversation where you can meet other people. And so even just how do you run a conference to be able to really get to know everybody's projects.
And it worked well.
And it worked really well. Reclaim's doing better and better about, they've got good discussion boards going on where you can see what's going on with other projects. You can get some sense of, you know, what the challenges are at different schools. And they're helping to facilitate that flow of information on the back end.
So I was really curious about that aspect of the conference that I heard about on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, in terms of the setting up of the conversations at restaurants or you know, reservations. How did that work in terms of like grouping? Was it random assortment or like, yeah, and tell us more about that if you would.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Adam gave us a big pep talk about how we really should not just go out to dinner with our friends. So there were these whiteboards to sign up. And so you could go with your friends if you wanted. You could see the names as people were signing up. But it was really cool that we've been encouraged right from the start, not just to hang out with our friends, but to meet totally new people. And it's been a lot of fun that way.
Yeah, and they sort of told us what kind of food each place had and encouraged you to sign up based on food rather than who was going, so that hopefully you get a natural mix. Lauren Brumfeld wrote a blog post about this about a week ago, and you can find that on her blog and on her Twitter account.
And it worked out exactly as planned.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was good. And then after dinner, a lot of people met back up at a rooftop bar and we had a live concert from Jim and others, which it would be fair that you didn't miss a lot if you weren't here for that. I don't know. If you've not seen Jim perform, perhaps you should.
Yeah. It was a fun time to gather.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
Yeah.
And we also have someone from CSU Channel Islands who's a dance teacher. So we had dancing
Yeah,
too.
the dancing was much better than singing.
Wait, who from Channel Islands? Give us the name. So
Oh, this is Heather, and she's fantastic. And this is another one of those like making connections things. I'd asked Michelle Putansky-Brock, who's going to be here from Channel Islands, and she said, "Oh, all the scheduling's so complicated, no one's going to be there." But then on the first day, she tweeted me and she said, "Heather's there. You have to find Heather." And I lifted up my head and I looked across the table, and there was Heather sitting across from me at the table. So another virtue of small conferences. When you're looking for someone, you can find them.
So that's what was going on with the dancing group last night?
Yeah,
She was
yeah,
teaching
yeah.
it?
That was
Okay.
Heather. Yeah. That was contemporary thrash, I think. And believe it or not, George, I was dancing. So there you go.
I believe.
I think one of the questions that I'll invite all of you to engage with as well is one of the ones we got in the first keynote that kind of, I don't know, I've been thinking about on and off as well, is if you could represent the web in a concrete way, what would it be?
Concrete place.
Concrete place, yeah. Concrete way, concrete place. If you could conceptualize what that is, what would it be?
And you're encouraged not to say a house.
Yeah, because that answer is taken. So,
Yeah, I saw the video that Martha shared on her blog post.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And there's a hashtag for the concrete place, right?
I think so.
can't
I think
remember
so.
what it is.
Hashtag
web.
Concrete web. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to see anyone else's submission,
There were some good ones.
It's a
Has
rave.
there been anything that has particularly surprised you at the conference?
There's some eerie artwork in this museum, and I'm going to be haunted by some of the audio installations, because when you go in the bathroom, there are people that talk at you like disembodied voice. Well, I don't know, it's like it's disembodied voices. And I tell you, some of them that get in your head, it's surprising. So
It's an unexpectedly interesting place.
yes.
thanks, Dad.
The tables, the booths around, that was really nice.
Oh, that was
The domains fair, I guess, was really cool. So there were several, I don't know, maybe a dozen, 9 projects around the perimeter of the room. So you could walk around and see what other people are working on, have a really nice intimate discussion with them about their projects. That was really cool.
And that was before any of the presentations, so I made some of my decisions about which presentations to go to, because I got a chance to see what people were about, what they were doing. It was really helpful.
Yeah.
I just posted a question to the chat, and it might just be me being oversensitive, so don't want to down anybody at the end of the conference. But I had I'm not even sure if it's a concern, but it just rang a bell for me when you talked about scaling domains and talking about how to scale that, and if you have 22,000 users, what happens then, and how do you see who uses what? How do you control who has access to what? How do you, like, all this vocabulary sounds very familiar to what I hear when I listen to basically me, myself, and I rant about the LMS. Is that something that is that something that you discussed on site as well, or is it just me at the end of the day being oversensitive?
Yeah, I think that's been a lot of the discussion. Yeah, and part of it is just is framed in wanting to make sure everybody has access to what they want. But part of it also is just, especially with the larger projects, once your students leave the university, what do you do to either maintain their access for them or deprovision their accounts and help them transition off? So there's some logistics questions. But then also, part of my question has been discoverability, and how do you if we're giving students voice, if we're giving them a platform, if we're amplifying their voice, whatever metaphor you think is applicable there, if they're one of 22,000, what does that actually mean? And in what way are you actually amplifying their voice at all, rather than just throwing them into the sea? And so it's not so much a question of how do you control things, as how do you enable them better in that large pool.
Well, and just what you've been doing, John does a great thing where it's a Best of Know You Create, is that what it's called, where he does some human curation, to try to bring stuff out and share it more widely. And I think I heard some other people talking about looking for automated ways to do that, because when you have big projects, human curation won't get at all those 20,000 accounts, but you want to share, to disseminate, to amplify in as many ways as you can.
And part of that's just using the tags and the categories that people are using on their own sites, but being able to say, if you've read these 2 blog posts about something that both have this tag on them, you might be interested in these other blog posts that also have the same tag. And so again, not so much about control, but rather about linkages and about sort of making maps or pathways through this great sea of stuff that's going on now.
Yeah, maps and routes, I've seen that as a metaphor on lots of different slides and presentations.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I joked about me being the German guy in this session. I don't want to but if I can only imagine how much at lots of places here in Germany, lots of administrators at our university would push for more of the quantification of all of this. Like, what do we get out of this now in hard numbers? Does that come up, or is that something that you have been able to just shield off?
You might have a different answer than
I'll just say Adam did a cool infographic, but that's something that...
Is this improving retention? Is this...
Yeah, exactly that.
What's great, I'll just say as a faculty member here, I feel very insulated from that. So I know they're scrambling to do that administrative layer, but meanwhile, faculty and students are just able to do our own things and define our own agendas as we do.
Yeah, I haven't heard much talk about justification other than sort of in the administrative side of, are you doing a good job sort of maintaining everything? Are you answering the questions that you get asked? But
well, it also came up though as like for some institutions, like the way they've got it to their university was actually crafting those justification and those arguments, whether it was by the path of the e-portfolio or whatever that was. So kind of that history conversation had come up and kind of the pragmatism of that in general. So
I heard a great anecdote just about a school that was running a pilot and had to justify at the end of that pilot carrying on. One of the reasons their pilot couldn't be shut down is their IT LMS group had put all their support docs up in a domain's WordPress site. And so in order to sustain the LMS, they had to keep domains going.
So there have been a few clever ideas for people. But part of the e-portfolios was a good one because they were saying that a lot of schools wanted to institute e-portfolios without any clear mandate as to why or what you get out of it or what it does. Does it increase retention or whatever? And so it was a commonality from many of the schools here that instead of doing a more classical e-portfolio, whatever that means, they ended up doing domains. And so that's one justification is here's something kind of like an e-portfolio maybe, but that doesn't speak directly to retention or access as much.
Martha's keynote had a great story about the long evolution of e-portfolios at the beginning of Reclaim. That was a really interesting story I hadn't heard before, but they had started with a long, like 18-month or something, e-portfolio discussion.
Yeah. And part of my justification is always that we provide, domains are a infrastructure for digital humanities projects, for increasing access, for increasing the capability of people to do all sorts of crazy things, but also OER, and you can justify things through OER to some extent.
And in a few minutes, I'll talk about unlocking the potential of the LMS using such technologies. So,
and there will be cats for that, right? We can do some cats. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. So we don't want to keep you on site for too long, but I think the question that Ian posed just a couple of minutes ago, what would you like to see us come away from this event with, might be a great closing question if virtual folks don't have anything else to add on. I don't want to be...
What would you like to see this event come away with? What would you like to see the takeaway or the grand outcome be?
Oh, just more great sharing. I mean, really, for an ethos of sharing, that's what this conference is all about. Carry on sharing.
To quote Tom Woodward, you can do anything. So
Yes, I saw that one. Yep.
That actually, yeah, that captures it.
Okay.
Another motto I heard from the dance teacher: fearless, shameless, but not reckless. So.
Okay, that sounds like me dancing. Any other questions from virtual folks, so we can let the on-site folks go? I know, Keegan, you have a session to run, and you others probably want to see it.
Yep.
Okay. So if we want to, we virtual folks can hang around for a couple of more minutes if you want to, but big thank you to you folks on site for joining us, and good luck and have fun in the session.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great. Yeah.
Thanks. Busy room.
Okay. Yeah, it was,
no
wasn't
kidding.
it? Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for those of you that are still online, and I would have asked it of the others, but I think we were kind of running short on time. But can any of you share some examples of interesting domains projects that have gone beyond WordPress installations, but are other types of projects? And I haven't had a plan to go through, the Twitter feed from the conference and look more closely at all of the sessions, and I'll maybe find some there, but that's what I'm looking for.
I haven't seen anything what people have been sharing. One thing I'm looking at doing is pulling in a lot more code sharing sites, because I teach computer science, so I want to pull into our mothership blog of syndication what people are sending out through GitHub or other places where they're sharing their code, and that's more domain specific. Well, look what I did there. Domain specific to my domain of one's own setup. But I haven't seen anything that's really unique shared. But I've lost track of the Twitter stream today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw something about that yesterday, but I'm not sure who to point my finger at this moment. It might come back later on.
It's an excellent question, though, because I think we want to go past just WordPress. A lot of my students used with Known before, although that's kind of trailed off because Ben's got busy doing something else. But I'd like to see more stuff that's not just WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to figure out an easier way. Most of my stuff in the past, I would start off students and say, okay, you can use free tools, you can use whatever you want. Give them tutorials on WordPress, Wix, Weebly, Google Sites, Wikispaces, do whatever you want. I had a Clemson that ran a class, and they just set up like a group in Medium, and just got the students in the process of publishing. I've thought about going the Known route. I use Known, I use WordPress in my own work. What I think the next step is, the one thing to keep in mind is that my thinking is you want to keep it as simple as possible, because those of us that are sitting here, we're not normal.
Yeah,
we're not the normal people. Our students sit in our classes, our colleagues sit and watch us, and they say,
"You're not normal."
Yeah, I got on the internet and I was video conferencing into this conference. We're not normal. And
that was my lunch discussion right now with some colleagues, actually.
Yeah, I
gotta run back. George will be back.
She's like, "Why do you have these two lights here in the room? What's wrong with you? You haven't moved for 2 days." I was like, "I'm video conferencing into Oklahoma. It'll be fine." And but the thing is, you want to keep it simple. So
I think your point about simple is really important. And I have computer science students, and they're all nerds, and I just totally overload them with too many tools sometimes, because it's just normal for me. But
with that, if you can figure out a way, to me, the secret sauce is, from having run a couple MOOCs and trying to get students to collaborate, the secret sauce is student A writes on their blog or their website, student B in the class sees it and responds outside of the class without being forced to. Like
Right.
that's the secret sauce.
That's the
And
beauty.
we've tried giving grades, we've tried not giving grades, we've tried all of the different elements. If there's the reason why I like the known model and the syndication, like if there's a way that they can have one hub where I can have my site, we can each have our site, and then when I put something on, it basically syndicates over and I can see that in one spot. Because
And
I
Google
think by
search
going,
becomes my hub in a way too, Ian, is my students run into stuff from 2 years ago from my other students when they're searching for how to do some programming problem, and they're physically located in the same location as those students are. And hey, I'm looking at Tonio's work, and I go, oh, cool. That's good work. You should go talk to him. He graduated, before, and I'll let you talk to him. So creating those connections has been wonderful after doing this for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all like if you look into like all the indie web, if you look into like the Posse model or the Pesos model, that's where I think it's going to. So if we could leave this domain 17 and we could have like one site that has all of our websites, all of our blogs feeding to it, so you could easily see, because even going through the thread now, people are sharing links and I'm like, oh, I haven't seen your site before. So it'd be kind of cool to go to like one silo, to use a horrible word right now, and see everybody's stuff. But
my RSS reader.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what Feedly, I've seen people do low budget, just set up a Feedly account and put all of the blogs there in Feedly. When I have classes where students respond, I put all of their blogs in Feedly and I follow them. And then you can share that RSS feed. You can tweet it out so they can just follow that and see, oh, so-and-so did their homework this week.
One of the cautions I have for my students in particular is giving them choice in it. If they want it to go further and farther, they have the choice and they make the decision to be found or not found, to be open or not open. And I think, giving them the controls gives them agency in what they want to project into their own domains per se, or their own blog sites or whatever it is. So.
And it protects you. Like I say to my students, there's a sliding scale of open. I choose to, for better or worse, be way open. You can do whatever you want. If you want to just put together, not even Google Docs, if you want to scribble out in a composition book your post and give it to me, that's fine. We're going to be over here in the land of open. Yeah. You can choose whatever you want.
I've had a few students like
that. That way, if they mess something up, then it's like, hey, you know what? This is part of the learning curve here.
So I had a few students like that. One came to the public later, but one just continued in his private space for the whole semester. And it could be someone who's really vulnerable. Some have told me that directly, but this student could have had that situation where their father or mother is a politician or something. I get those.
Yeah. So for the faculty, who were just this whole area, it seems to me there's this gap between, encouraging not that choice for our students, and then trying to explain to the other side of the aisle, if you will, to our chairs or deans or whoever. It's like, well, then how do you know that you're doing, this course you're teaching is doing what it's supposed to be doing for the institution if you're giving students all this choice? And some of them are obviously at that way open scale, and you can just say, here, look, and then you've got other students who are rightfully, for their own reasons, saying, well, I'm just going to do this corner of this stuff over here, and I'm not really active on Twitter, and I'm not really posting these other things, and so on. And yet that they're going to be okay, right? But that's not the conversation. You can say, okay, my class as a whole is just fine because I've got a very few students who are kind of doing what we're doing here, to sum it up, right? They're networking in the sense that we're networking, or they're engaging in a sense that works for them. And then you've got other students who are taking these entirely different paths that aren't as easy to, I'm going to say, document or quantify. I think the quantification of all this came up earlier, right? But that's what the institutional side seems to need to see, right? So it's like there's a gap between what we see as individual successful student learning, which is what we're about, and then you've got the institutional side that says they want that, and in a way that they do, but they still need to see, well, what about the 20 out of the 30 students you have that went these entirely different pathways?
Mm-hmm. And I don't think and that's part of the challenge is that, as I guide my students, I don't think I should be the one telling them to be open or not, or where they should be on that continuum, and I have to remain cognizant. I have to problematize my own perspectives. I have to think about my privilege. I need to think about the fact that the internet can be a really bad place for a lot of people. And luckily, knock on wood, I haven't made any super big mistakes up to this point, but there's a lot of people that for various reasons don't want to get out there and be open, for whatever reason. So in my classes, I say, look, you can choose how open or closed you want to be, understanding that just because you put something online doesn't mean that billions of people will come in and rush at what you did and look at what you did. And I try to impress upon them that those of us that try to get people to look at your websites, it's really hard to get them there, so, but I think I need to think about, my perspective and my privilege and what I can and cannot say and do, and give my students that latitude, and my colleagues latitude to make that decision for themselves. I'll guide them, I'll nudge toward open, but that's about all I can do.
Yeah, and I mean, not to be self-promoting, but I mean, probably won't be able to avoid it. This all reminded me, the sliding scale of openness. I just posted the link to it. Reminded me of a workshop we did just about a year ago at OER 16, where we talked about different drivers of openness and different dimensions of openness, like the administrational level. So what happens if you're trying to be open, but administration management of your institution doesn't want you to? What happens if you try to be open on the pedagogy level, but like the content, for example, is closed down? So how do how do you say, communicating tubes, this experiment in physics, where you have so you want to level all of these out just a bit, or you want them to be at least in correspondence with one another, because otherwise things will go horribly wrong for either you, your institution, your students, or somebody in your library, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's an excellent example.
Yeah, George, and you're just right. The VC is a great example for that. So I think it really matters to be conscious of who gets to speak up and who gets space and who gets to take up that space, and you have to be conscious about, like, as you said, Ian, your own privilege, because I don't know, me being me and looking like me, it's pretty easy.
I wanted to circle back to Chris, Ian. What were you thinking of other types of examples?
So in this workshop, let me take a look. So because we have we basically said there are these 6 drivers, as if you I could probably do the workshop online with a bit more prep, but
or later. I was wondering what Chrissy was saying in terms of what other kind of. That's fine.
Honestly, I'm not even sure yet, but so I need to experiment myself some more with some of the other tools on my own domain and installations of other things beyond WordPress, and I haven't done that. But so I'm just curious what some others have done.
Sharing what type of work? What are your students doing?
Well, actually, one would not be a student example. One is an example. Well, I will have a research fellow working on taking some past projects and making them publicly available for and open. to anybody on their choose your own adventure stories created through some multimedia. I mean, so I'm kind of wondering like what the best way is for her to do that. I like your example for computer science students and sharing of their code.
Right, and there's the artistic community would be a whole different ball game too.
Right, right.
Coding's art, but that I won't have to argue that.
I would say for that, well, I would start small. You know, I mean, I would start by, and I would suggest that you work along with the student or the individual and say, okay, I'm going to work on mine, you work on yours. Start collecting the materials and get it ready to go online. That's much of the challenge is when you build up a domain, when you build up a website, one of the key things is you got to have content to put there, or else you have this empty house.
Under construction sign.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, you need to have all that content ready to go in. So if you say, okay, we're gonna, to me, with my students, there's a lot of thought that has to go in before you actually launch the site. There's got to be, what's the content? Is it ready to go? Is it all consolidated in one spot? If it's art, how am I going to represent that online? If it's lesson plans for my pre-service teachers, how am I going to share that? If it's, you know,
audio.
Yeah, if it's audio files, if it's video files, if it's coding scripts, like get it all in one spot, ready to go. And then I have a couple posts on my site about starting off with your digital identity. Who are you? Who do you want to be? You know, who are you? And then, you know, I have workshops where I have people in the room Google each other. And
what do you
then
like? What have you seen out there that you like? And how does that map to what
who do you want to be? And then do like a mood board. Like, what's my website going to look like? You know, I want minimalism or I want this busy. So start to really design and decide upon who you want to be. Go out and figure out, who am I already online? What are things I have to kill off? What are things I have to build up? And then once you're at that point, then it's a little bit easier to say, okay, I'm going to do a WordPress site or Wix or Weebly or whatever. Because that's the hard part is, like, as soon as you start asking about like tools, especially with those of us that are in these meetings, then it's like somebody's like, oh yeah, you could just load HTML up on that. And I'm like, no. Like, I ain't got time for that.
Fire up Emacs.
Yeah, all of a sudden people are like, well, if you just run this, you know, no.
Yeah.
I like simple.
I agree.
Well, hey, I got to sign off. I got another meeting I got to get to here.
Who are you going to meet with now? Who's
Yeah,
cooler than this?
I'm avoiding meetings here.
No, I know.
George is avoiding his vacation.
No, this is part of it. It's not like I don't sit around thinking about this while I'm, you know, looking at the ocean and listening to the waves and so on. So, you know, Chad,
George, you said in the sidelines that the students will be like us or we're weird, but we do this on vacation. We do this from home. This is just stuff we do.
Yeah, it's just stuff that we do, and you know, it ebbs and flows. You know, sometimes we're more on than other times, but it just ebbs and flows. Obviously, we're thinking about this a lot and interacting a lot. So, you know, it's all. Okay, yeah, and it's not a house, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's the ocean. It ebbs and flows until you drown.
Yeah. Or until we hit the coral beds or something. Yeah. Okay.
Until Google shuts us off here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I'm gonna. I'm going to see Wonder Woman in an hour. So.
Awesome.
I heard it's awesome.
Yeah. So that's going to be, you know, my next vacation activity. So talk to you guys later.
I want to see your blog reflection from it. Live stream from Wonder Woman.
Good to hear you, George.
Right.
Okay.
See
So
y'all.
I'll stop the broadcast. It was a great session. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Christian.
Good job. Good job, guys. Thanks for putting